Welcome to this session of Project Forward, led by the UN ESBN Taskforce on Youth and Women Entrepreneurship, which brings a series of local and international industry leaders, CEOs, innovators, and successful entrepreneurs to discuss the current business landscape and to provide valuable insights and guidance for the businesses of tomorrow. These themed-focused conversations bring both actionable insights and critical business reflections in the areas of innovation, technology, space, ESGs, and global connectivity. For this session, we have Isabelle Paradis, President of Hot Telecom and our Telecom Ambassador at UN ESBN Youth and Women Entrepreneurship Taskforce, who chaired the session Accelerating Telecom Innovation and welcomed Eric Cevis, Marc Halbfinger, Keri Gilder, Mardia, Niehaus, and Patrick George. We are indeed honored to have Isabelle as the session chair and thank all panel members for their time and contributions. Let's go into the session.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, and welcome to our panel entitled Harnessing the Power of Diversity to Create the Future. There's no doubt about it, society as a whole is going through one of the most intense phases of transformation, and the telecom industry is at the core of this revolution, as it has become an intrinsic part of everything that we do and even everything that we touch. So this comes with great responsibility, however, considering that the success of the evolution of our industry, the telecom world, will have a direct impact of our society of the future. So if we took a step back, and look at all the innovation wave that we've gone through in the last 30 years, really, I feel that they felt actually like revolutions. Maybe in terms of the introduction of mobile, the internet, more recently the cloud, and the one that we're going into, which is the virtual world. So, and this has transformed us as human beings, the society as a whole, and the way that we live and work forever, empowering us to control all of our lives from everywhere, at any time, on any device, at the touch of a button. So there's no doubt about it, telecom and the society's future is forever intertwined. But I don't know about you, I have many million-dollar questions in my mind, which are: what does the future hold? What will the next big wave bring? How will we build the telecom industry that will create a successful industry for the future, or society for the future? So these are only a few topics that we'll talk about today, and we'll discuss with our esteemed panelists. And believe me, everyone, we're really lucky today because we have some of the most inspiring leaders in our industry. At least they inspire me every day. So if you can help me welcome Eric Cevis, he's President Verizon Partner Solutions. Keri Gilder, she's CEO of Colt. Marc Halbfinger is CEO of PCCW Global. Mardia, Niehaus, she's Senior Vice President HR Business Partner Technology and Innovation at Deutsche Telekom. And last but not least, my good friend and troublemaker, Patrick George, is co-founder and Group Chief Strategy Officer at Tofane Global. So everyone, welcome to today's discussion.
Hello, Isabelle.
Thank you.
You ready?
Thank you. Yes, ready.
So we're going to start with a bang with our first question. And the lucky winner with our first question is Marc Halbfinger. Is going to get us started. So Marc, my first question to you is, let's say we took a selfie of our industry today and we looked at what do we see? Please share with me what your view is, or where we are at in the evolution of our industry, or in the evolutionary journey of the telecom world.
Well, I have to say that sometimes the best way to take a snapshot forward is to take a look at a picture backwards, right? And if you were have said to me 24 months ago, oh, by the way, everyone's going to be working from home, wearing a mask when they hop in their car to go outside to the shop or whatever the case, I would have thought that that's not quite possible. But exactly 2 years ago this week, in January 2020, and now we're in January 2022, in case this is being recorded, it was unheard of. And within the span of 60 days, I think that the world changed. It also changed our attitudes to each other. It changed our attitudes to what we saw publicly. And it certainly let us understand how important the ICT infrastructure is to assure that economic behavior and even just basic human interaction amongst loved ones could take place. You couldn't go and see grandma or grandpa, but you could use perhaps a WhatsApp or some sort of video capability to do that. And so arguably, as this pandemic has brought about cultural symptoms, some of them quite problematic, including stress, xenophobia, one might argue, in some locations. These have helped perhaps create polarizations as a common world affliction has been tackled by jurisdictions. And I think in that respect, just looking back 2 years, the self-evolving capability of the industry would indicate that we have the opportunity to do much more. Where will we be 5 years from now? I'm not a prophet. I don't know. I hope that within 5 years, we would have put the pandemic behind, extracted from it learnings for positive global interaction, taken the learnings about the negativities and converted those into more value, leveraging the ICT environment. And I'm hopeful, very hopeful, that somehow our industry will facilitate greater positive interaction, smoother economic growth, whatever might be ailing society, including biohealth.
Okay. Who else wants to go? What do you see on your selfie? Eric, what do you see? You see something similar to Marc or something completely different?
Well, first, Isabelle, it's great to be here and representing kind of our talk here for the United Nations on economic and social issues there. And I kind of echo much, if not all of Marc's comments there. One of the things I would add is that clearly I feel we've made some progress. So a message of hope is today, we are not just staying steady, we're actually moving ourselves forward and continuing to evolve in the industry. Continued investments being made in the network infrastructure, continue to move forward on ease of business from a customer experience and digital transformation standpoint, and just very excited at the kind of investment and capital that we're putting forward to make sure we move the industry forward, Isabelle, to all the things that Marc has said, and to even personalize it for the changing society that we see. More and more millennials and youth coming through, whether it's high school or colleges, and what we can do to encourage them to embrace kind of the sciences and technology evolution, as well as continue to look at women in the workforce and making certain we're continuing to make strides there, as we've seen a lot of data supporting how the GDP will continue to increase when we have a diverse and equitable and inclusive workforce going forward. And I even look at Verizon, a number of retirement eligible folks that we see coming up, and retirement eligibility seems like it gets longer and longer with all the advances in medical terms, but it's also good to make certain we're creating bench strength and doing those things so that we don't lose the progress that we've made. Marc mentioned the pandemic as well. You listen to a lot of the data there with schools and colleges, and what are our youth doing if they're learning from home, from a distance learning standpoint, or are they actually in school with masks and the like, practicing social distancing and the like? Or even the work with women, where we find so often, whether it's distance learning or elderly care, a lot of the stats would suggest that more women have taken out of the workforce to care for some of those items. And we have to make certain that we don't lose the progress we've made as we continue to make sure that leadership and technology advances continue and we support our youth and women in the workforce.
So you mentioned digital transformation, and obviously we've been talking about it for a long time. So guys, do you agree? Do you think that, we're well onto the digital transformation journey, or are we still talking about it a lot and it's a bit of fluff? Do you think we're really on the way to digitizing all of our industry, number one, so that the world can digitize itself and enable all the good things that you've mentioned going forward?
Isabelle,
Yeah,
maybe on that topic, because our CEO coined a phrase which stolen from Andy Grove, who said only the paranoid will survive, where we now say only the digital will survive. Mm-hmm. And are we there yet? I absolutely do not believe that. And then, if I just talk for us, we have a massive way to go before we get there. But paradoxically, I think this whole pandemic kind of leapfrogged us a little bit into that space, which, where we just were forced to become more digital, become more, to think differently. And it also plays into the hands of the millennials or the Generation Zs, which is kind of more the preferred way that they would like to work. Also, when I look at our customers, what do our customers want? Increasingly very individualized, flexible solutions to all of their problems, whether it's business or consumer. So I think the digital topic is a massive one. And I really believe it's only the digital that will survive in our industry as well. But I don't believe we are there yet. I think we're the way
me neither, which is why I asked the question, because I don't think we're there by any stretch of the imagination. And I know, Keri, I know that digital transformation is something you talk about a lot. What's your view? What's your view on your selfie? What does your selfie look like?
I think I'll answer both those questions. So do I think the digital transformation is here? You look across industry, and even the top Fortune 500 companies still, less than 50%. And I actually don't know the exact statistic, but I think it's less than 25% have actually digitized their entire environment. So, if that's any indication that we have a long way to go in regard to digitization, I think, I think that's a metric that you can use. I do think that our environment accelerated during the pandemic. We moved from fixed to software defined to virtual. And now I do think we're moving into the realm of intelligence. Yeah. And as we move into this realm of intelligence, that takes me into what my selfie looks like in 5 years from now. I think about it in 5 C's. I think about it with our core solutions and our technologies, and that does include expansion of fiber infrastructure. And we're seeing FTTX being built, out into the home, to the edge, and being driven, further even into the mobile parts of our business like it never has been before. But I think there's a platform that rides on top of that is intelligent. And it is what is going to enable this world and enable the digital economy to actually exist as we go forward. I know Marc has been a major innovative engine in this area. Colt has also been an innovative engine in this area. But I think, the solutions are one thing. The next thing we have to consider is what I call close protection. We have to look at the way we're dealing with our customers' data, how we're protecting it, how we're driving the processes, procedures, signing up to corporate binding rules with GDPR, and ensuring that we actually have the protection that the consumers, that the enterprises needed, which means we have to collaborate as an industry. We have to collaborate on the solutions. We have to collaborate on the talent pool. We have to collaborate when it comes to that platform, because not one company will be able to provide that. Just like one company doesn't provide the holistic internet, we have to have NNIs and MPLS in order to enable that. This digital platform is the next advancement towards that. But then that takes us to the community and takes us into climate. And those are two things that we have to closely consider as we're looking at the strategy for the industry going forward. What is the impact on the community? How can we embrace them? How can we enable the circular economy with some of the technologies that we have? And then how do we ensure that we're not actually further impacting climate change because of the amount of energy that we're consuming with these solutions. How do we actually start to reduce the emissions that we have? And one of the ways that we can do that is embracing the hybrid environment, embracing the virtual world, and actually ensuring that our employee bases are traveling less.
And I think we won't have any choice. We have to embrace the virtual world if we want it or not, because it's here and it's going to be here more and more, I think. So, and you mentioned a lot of interesting points, I think, but I guess in the future, I think, you know, all of that, when you said cloud, virtualization, automation, the introduction of 5G, the empowerment of the people is transforming the industry, the society, to really give us control, as I mentioned a bit earlier. We are now in control of our experience more and more. And I think with 5G, I believe that it will create the virtualization of our industry, where before it was a one-size-fits-all type of industry, now it will become a very hyper-personalized type of industry in terms of solution, in terms of how the services are delivered. And do you think we're able to deliver that going forward, this type of hyper-personalization? I don't know, Patrick, did you want to jump into that?
Yes, but maybe just a small reaction on what my prestigious colleague has said. You know me, I'm so proud of our industry. You know, what happened in the last 2 years, Telecom was a kind of the safety road where we were in a dead end. You know, when nobody was able to leave home, when nobody was able to cross boundaries. I mean, Telecom helped most of us and different businesses to continue to operate. It helped family to still get contact to each other while they were not able to visit each other, you know. And for example, this type of video discussion was reserved for super professional 2 years ago. Now it's common. People are doing even, drinks, virtual drinks with friends to do that. So it really went down into the whole population, most of this global population, to allow to move that. And with the women, you know, the topic of the day is how can we help also this inclusion with women and youth people. It also totally changed the paradigm of location, you know, because you have different type of companies. Some of them are very centralized, some of them are totally decentralized, but all those companies had to reinvent and to be able to be flexible. And then suddenly the location where you sit is not anymore that important. You know? The fact that the normal day-to-day job is to go to the office to meet the colleague and discuss, that had changed this paradigm. And so here, for people in some remote location, for people who have to move for family reasons, they can stay connected to their business and continue really to develop. So again, I'm so proud of what we achieved as an industry to help not only ourselves to continue to be in business, but more importantly, the whole communities and the diasporas and to continue to interact there. So that's really, for me, important.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the future? Anyone? I mean, you've touched about on the future a little bit. I said my view about the future of the industry. Anyone wants to add anything about the future? Let's look in our crystal balls. What do we see? What do we see in there? What's exciting about our industry going forward, or what's challenging?
But I guess it's all revolution, technology revolution, as always, the kind of same pattern. And I speak under the control of my colleagues, but it's usually you first try to mirror what you did with the previous technology using the new one, and then progressively you add new way of working, which are native with this new technology. And I guess the old digitalization, the old virtualization, this industry based on a remote, I can say on decentralized intelligence, on a lot of flexibility, on available bandwidths, of very reduced, can say transit time. I guess that will again help us to create new way of working, new way of interacting, new way of producing, new way of the spreading the health, you know, and the care and the doctors and the science to more remote place. So I guess that's really where I see that. We will see the virtualization, this bridge to be a little bit more on our industry between this old telecom world and the new telecom world. I guess it's important because the combination of both will make it even better. So all those CPaaS, communication platform as a service, communication as a service, and all of those that will help to go deeper and deeper inside the different enterprise to solve the communication, the interaction paradigm.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I think as I think of that from a Verizon standpoint and overall industry, Isabelle, it draws on the attention that, continued network as a service, we continually see growth in that particular space, whether it's our Ethernet or our Wave, our internet product and services, continued evolution there with PIP and the services we do as a network. At the same time, we continue to embrace other things that allow a growth narrative in our industry, such as above the network. And what are the things we're doing, say, with video conferencing, such as we're using here today to support your remote working from home, education from home, but even security or the Internet of Things, where more and more machine-to-machine transactions are taking place. So strong believer that we'll continue to see the telecom industry evolve, even as we still see a level of TDM migration to IP services. And to your point, Isabelle, and colleagues previously spoke, the evolution of what we do with 5G and C-band, we're really going to make big splashes with the spectrum that we've done with C-band as we continue to partner on multi-edge compute so that we're taking latency out of the network so we can support things like autonomous cars or robotic surgery and smart cities and smart communities and society. And so these continue to be the investments that make sense for us in the industry and evolve ourselves in the industry, and making certain that, as we have diversity of thought or opinions and age and gender, that we're inclusive to the whole global spectrum, caring for, livelihood, work that we do, training that we do, education that we do. And we continue to think that investment makes sense. I mean, we spent $50-some billion, this past year on C-band, and we're going to roll out in probably a very aggressive way to add that to our millimeter wave strategy and continue to look at use cases that evolve for ease of business, ease of life for, the society and the communities that we serve each and every day. And so we're going to continue, I think, on that journey. And I see tremendous upside for it, to the point many have said on digital transformation. I mean, the investments that we're doing in APIs and partnering with the TM Forum to make certain that we can scale or MEF standardization so that interoperability can continue to happen so that we can more quickly create an ease of business. It makes a lot of sense. I've invested a lot of dollars in Verizon on, our quoting and our ordering systems, so that customers can self-serve if they so choose. The new generation seems to want to be more self-service in their approach. And so we're trying to make certain that this is as easy as possible. So putting billions of dollars behind our infrastructure and what we call business transformation initiatives so that we can continue to drive platforms as a service, infrastructure as a service, and really beef up even security at this point in time with SASE and some of the other standards that are coming forward to make certain that we can scale and meet the growing bandwidth requirements of the industry going forward.
Okay. Anyone wants to add anything that they see in a crystal ball of the future before I move to the next topic, which is innovation? Before I go there, anyone wants to add anything to the discussion so far into the future? What will the future look like?
I think nothing new from my side, just to Eric's point. The whole top, you mentioned 5G. And I think our industry is still in the process of finding the best applications, best use cases. We're not there yet. We still have some work to do. Equally so, the whole topic of convergence and access from anywhere in an intuitive way for our customers. Those are still topics we are grappling with. All of that, I think, within the context of the pandemic, as we spoke, but also I can't remember the timing now exactly, but at the time of the pandemic, when we had the whole geopolitical situation hotting up all around us, where we have to find a new place of how we play and how we function within this environment for our business to survive.
Mm-hmm. So listening to you guys, and I believe as well that really the new normal now is chaos. we can never plan ahead anymore. We can try to, but we have to be ready for it to not be the reality that we expect it to be. So we have to learn to live in chaos. And I think with, each wave of innovation that we've discussed so far is just speeding up. They're coming faster and faster, which for me means that we need to learn to innovate nonstop in a fluid way. And I know, Keri, we've had the discussion on that before, fluid innovation, constant reinvention. So first of all, do you agree with me? And also, if that's the case, how do we make it happen in a telecom industry that is very traditional, well, up to recently, it doesn't move very fast, it's not so agile? I know you'll tell me that it's not the case, but it has been the case at least until recently. How do we change that? How do we make this fluidity happen? How do we create organizations that can deal with chaos and actually grow from chaos? Is that realistic? And if so, how do we go about it? Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to take it, Isabelle, because I'm actually excited about the chaos in many ways. And the reason that I'm excited about it is because in order to embrace it, you have to embrace diversity of thought. Because innovation can come from anywhere inside your organization or outside of your organization. We ran a hackathon last year, and it was an innovation hackathon in order to figure out how we could price our services better. And actually, the winning proposition came from the place within the organization you'd think pricing, what do they know about? The legal organization. And it came
lawyers,
from
being an engineer,
it came from that part of the organization. And interestingly enough, the person that it came from, had a degree in geology. So, the reality is we have to look beyond the traditions of the organization, and we have to start thinking about where we're getting talent, how we're getting talent, how we're collaborating on talents. And one of the initiatives that I've started working on with the TM Forum, because I'm the chair of the Diversity Council and Inclusion Council for them, is actually building a talent consortia for the industry. We need to attract new talents in the industry. Eric mentioned the retirement cliff that we're coming up upon pretty quickly. In the next 5 years, the realm of our industry, the employees in our industry, is going to look very different from what it does today. And what we have to focus on is actually attracting that diversity of thought into the industry. And in many cases, what I've learned doing just a few months of research with some universities, both in the US and in the UK, is that most of the young talent, whether be it in tech or in some of the business areas, they don't really even know who telecom is because we're not in the use cases that they use in the classroom. So first and foremost, we have to get in the use cases in the classrooms to get the young talent excited about the industry. We have to change the way that we're collaborating across our organizations in order to build cohorts and communities of this young talent so that they can start to learn and start to, listen and be excited about, being together on that journey. And then if we start to do that, then I think we can drive this mission of being one of the most sought after industries that, that diverse talent is wanting to go into, excited about, and our brand starts to change from being a traditional, very, call it boring industry in some ways, and in some of their eyes, to one of the most innovative, one of the most exciting places to work that gives them an opportunity to bring that, diversity of thought with them.
Yeah. I agree with you completely, Keri, because when I was young, a while ago now, and Marc knew me then, he was in the same company. The company I worked for brought in these young people to trigger change. We were at the cusp of the deregulation of the industry, at the cusp of a very exciting time for the industry. And a lot of the traditional monopoly had to transform themselves completely, a bit where we are at now, but in a different way. So they brought in a cohort of young, dynamic, crazy people right out of university, engineers, economists, from people that to learn politics, marketing people,
from all over the world.
Yes, yes, and it was a complete success. The company reinvented itself within a matter of years. Marc was there with me. You can remember it was a very cool place to work and a very dynamic place. So I'm a complete believer in this, which is why also I'm doing some initiative, and what we're doing today is part of that. Inspire the young people to, well, so first of all, as you said, Keri, let them know that we exist and that we're a bunch of cool people and it's a really cool industry, very exciting. And also make it easy for them to join us. And when they join us, we support them through their journey. So I think I for sure that's one of the first things we need to do, harness the power and the craziness of the young people to refresh and put some dynamism in the industry.
You're right. I mean, and I think exactly the reason, when you look at where people saw us, young people saw us previously as a staid, boring industry. Interestingly, the whole pandemic, and Patrick, you spoke about that, where the purpose of telecommunications, and suddenly this became an industry which was in a way, a lifesaver in terms of human connection and people getting together, which also probably made people look at it in a different way. I think when we started to employ more people with digital skills or future skills, the initial process was really tough, to convince young software developers, data scientists, etc., that this is a really exciting place. But fortunately also with the process of having to develop new business models and more digital business models, these are the people we need. And by bringing those people on, it becomes a magnet, for obviously, attracting other people, like-minded people, because these, individuals want to work on interesting, exciting new projects with great people, and in all of the different ways, and not the traditional ways, which also now is something that we are able to consider, because you can sit in Russia, India, or Hungary with a German engineer, and you can jointly form a team to do that. But I think this focus on bringing in usefulness, and I think something that we are facing with people going into retirement, there is a period still, there is a couple of years before we get to that. So how do we bridge this gap of the 5 to 7 years of saying goodbye to very, wise, competent people who built our industry, but at the same time making space for this new innovation. And even there, we've had to become creative in finding projects and programs, how to use the wise and the silver foxes, if we can call it that.
Silver foxes, Patrick.
The wisdom of those people together with the new, and in the whole skills transformation process. Because what we've also realized, you cannot just go outside to find the new skills. There's a lot of that building that needs to be done somehow inside, and we have to bring those two topics together.
Yeah, and I know Isabelle at Verizon, I mean, we don't use the term chaos as much as we use more of a term called controlled chaos, because we do think that we can control some of our destiny relative to this based on some of the comments that others have said here, because, we started looking at this thing a lot more as, what is the opportunity? What's the art of the possible here? I mean, Marc brought up the point earlier about the rear view mirror. So often I teach my team that says, well, the rear view mirror in my car is the smaller of the mirrors. And so let's look at it for best practices and a leap forward, but don't forget that front windshield is humongous. And so what's in front of us and the opportunities to advance are so much more as we learn from the rear view mirror perspective there. And so we created a talent works group for 3 pillars, Isabelle. 1, how do you attract talent? 2, how do you develop talent? And then 3, how do you inspire talent through your culture in your organization? And so we've got leaders such as myself handling each one of those pillars, even as I run a business unit globally, getting a good sense for what are the needs of us going forward. For example, hiring interns every single year. And then beyond those interns, their junior, senior year, we offer them full employment straight from their intern experience and graduating out of college proactively. We've also created like a college ambassador program where individuals like myself, we've adopted colleges. And on those colleges, we go and we speak to their, science programs, their math programs, their engineering programs, and the like. And then we actually go forward with open recs that we have, meeting with the hiring folks on career services on the campuses and promoting jobs in finance, legal, technology, network operations, you name it, every discipline. And we found that this has been just a strong journey for us to continue that type of engagement. So that's a big push with youth. We have a Verizon Innovation STEM program. We used to do it at the high school level only. We've actually moved it into the middle school program. And so we go in and help build robots at the middle school level and the high school level. So once again, we spur the interest in the telecom sector and show them that it's bringing sexy back to telecom, and that it is a good place to work and a good place to apply your skills and talents. And that's been a big youth push for us. At the same time, with women in the workforce, we've created, a 9-month training and investment upskill program so that they get coaching and mentoring and access to different opportunities by making sure that they're skilled up to perform those particular C-level roles. We created a women's co-lab, which I'm really loving, where we actually partnered with various companies, Harvard Business, MasterCard, the Achieve Institute, Estee Lauder, and we take the best practices that each company has, and we call it a co-lab, and basically give access to these great tools that every company is doing in our women's co-lab, so that you can kind of create and push yourself forward that much faster. So we're excited about this time in the industry and excited about shaping youth and women and candidly all individuals for employment opportunities in the telecom space.
Thank you, Eric. And you kind of stole my next question, which how to make the industry sexy again so that these cool people join us? Because we're fighting against Yahoo, Google, all these cool looking companies. They're probably not cooler than us, but they look cooler. Do we have a chance to make what should we do to make the industry sexy again? Like when I joined, it was the industry to go into. Can we do that again? What do we do? Marc, what do you think? What could we do to make the industry sexy again for these people to join us?
Well, first of all, I've stopped saying telecom and I've stopped saying dial. We don't dial anymore, and we rarely use an old style telephone, which would indicate telecom. And I prefer now to say ICT, and I think it's a call out also. In fact, we're on a panel that's effectively being sponsored by a subcommittee group of the United Nations. The United Nations prefers the term ICT in any event. And if you take a look at the United Nations Sustainable Goals to 2030 that were published in 2016, the whole idea of inclusiveness and diversity that we're talking about also factor, I think it's goal number 9, I forget which number, it has to deal with digital inclusion and to make sure that globally we're bridging the digital divide. And I think that's part of what we've been talking about. And what you're saying is, well, innovation is going to attract that, and part of who we need to bring on in this diversity inclusion side is the millennials and so on. I want to offer just maybe a flip side, not to challenge, but to say that if we're going to create digital inclusion for all of our societies along the lines of the sustainable goals that the United Nations proposes, we need to remember those who are older in our societies as well, and to create environments for them. I think that, Eric was referring to training programs at Verizon. I think that we've hit hard in our shop also in the last 3 years with a dramatic amount of training. And what I've discovered is that, interestingly, some of the colleagues who are generationally, chronologically, have more years with them are actually really engaged in the training cycle in order to convert themselves and to regenerate. And one might argue that they're the new youth. And so when we look at diversity in our organizations and diversity that facilitates inclusion as we try and bridge this digital divide, I think we need to look at a few things. Number one is, let's not just focus on the millennials, but let's focus on how to bring millennials into decision making, because while you might bring them into an organization, we might run the risk of chronological arrogance that somehow because we're older and more experienced, so to speak, we know better, but that's probably not true. inclusion means also recognizing the value of experiences that the youth are bringing to the table, which is a different form of experience that the older people will never appreciate. At the same time, the older colleagues are representing a generation that we need to strive hard to include, and not just to pop them off that retirement cliff that we referenced earlier. All of that has to happen together. What's interesting is that on the one hand, the pandemic is creating opportunity even to broaden this diversity side beyond geography, even to neurodiversity, which I think also the United Nations seems to promote more aggressively than other business organizations. I think that's quite important. There's a risk alongside that by working too much from home and so on, that we lose some of the community-oriented environments that we had at the companies. How do we find all of these new worlds? And so with that, I'll just offer one last comment, and that is, when you said innovation, Isabelle, in Hong Kong and China, when the word innovation somehow translates to disruption, which is a common word in Western culture, disruption in the Chinese language refers to destruction. And if you take a look at the economics of disruption, there's often winners and losers that's brought about from that destruction. And I hope that we would instead adopt Keri's approach of innovation, of building, of making sure that we're not looking to disrupt others, but rather to extract from everywhere so that we can build and innovate. And I think that will help get us to those digital divide targets that the United Nations has as part of the sustainable goals. I think it will service inclusion objectives. And I think that we can recreate ourselves simply by believing in the fact that the so-called telecom industry or ICT industry is about interoperability, not about singular ecosystems. If we can tell young people, folks, we're open. And some of those fancy schmancy names that you've heard up until now, they're about closed ecosystems. We're about openness. That simple message should be very sexy.
If I can rebound on what Marc said, I guess I cannot agree more on that. And I guess, we all had our marketing course. We were told you need to think out of the box. And we all know that it's very difficult to be out of the box. But that's why this diversity is key, to just have a bigger box, And it's not only about millennial, because a millennial will consume telecom, by the way, in certain region of the world in certain way, in other region of the world another way. And then people 10 years older will use totally different media, totally different systems. And again, that's very important to have your company having this kind of granularity in terms of diversity, gender, you can say positioning of the world, location, because that will help you to get more idea and try to make bridges between different usage that you can find in the place in the world and another place in the world with different type of usage. And I guess that's where we are fantastically placed as an industry to collect all the different culture on this planet and all different type of usage, and then from there deduct some solution that will suit a part, because one size fits all doesn't exist and will never exist. And so to have this kind of granularity of answer to the needs of the population, I guess it is key that this diversity is really our day-to-day bread.
Completely agree. Keri, do you want to add anything?
I do. I want to actually add on to what Marc said, because to me, that's talking to the universities, but expanding beyond the universities, like you said, it's not just those students, it's actually tech skills as well, in order to bring in some, non-university talent. It's looking at the talent that we have within our current industry today and expanding upon on that. But the key word that he used was interoperability. And I think that's the advantage that we have. That's what makes us so cool, is that we're all on this panel today and we've all worked with one another. We've all helped each other's companies be successful. And we're one of very few industries that actually does that actually does embrace partnerships, not just within, a certain geography, but across geographies around the world. I was talking to my husband today and I said, one of the coolest things I think I've gained personally from being in this industry is that I can almost go to any country in the world and call someone up and say, hey, can you help me out? Or what restaurant should I go to tonight? And that is awesome. That is just such an amazing part of this industry, that you can have these lifelong friendships from anywhere in the world. And if you're in trouble, or if you have a situation where you have an unfortunate subsea link break or a fiber cut, you can call that other friend, that other company, and you will work on it in order to get it back up and going. So in a lot of ways, it's this winning together. We will win as an industry together. And ultimately, I think because of that, we can change the world. And I truly do believe that.
I agree completely. Thinking differently together, working differently together. I'm a big fan. And I agree with you completely what you've said, Marc, about, obviously we want everyone to be represented in our industry, because we have to mirror the society. If you want to create solutions for young people, you have to have young people. For women, you have to have women. For older people, it has to mirror the society almost perfectly. And I agree about the older generation. My CTO, all of you know him probably, Steve Heap. He's of a greater age. I won't tell his age in public, but he's of a greater age. He's past retirement by quite a few years, but he still brings me so much value. His views are so valuable. His knowledge is valuable, and it balances me out because I'm a more crazy person. I have young people working with me, and he brings a lot of value to the discussion, which I wouldn't be able to do without him. And when I see some companies that get rid of their employees at 55, it breaks my heart, because what are you losing this richness? These people have so much knowledge, so much to bring. And I think people have something to bring until they want to. They shouldn't be gotten rid of. I think it's a shame. It's a big loss for our industry. So I agree with you. We need to bring more young people, more diverse people, and try to embrace our older generation and give them a space and give them an active role in playing their part in the creation of our future society. So I think I definitely agree with that fully, Marc. And you know Steve very well, so you understand what I mean.
Fully agree with that, Isabelle. I think our first upskilling and reskilling academies were focused on our own employees. And that was a joy, to see people who've spent the last 25 years in a specific career actually put their hands up and say, I want to actually do a software engineering and it's tough. It was a 6-month in software engineering. It was a 6-month program in data analytics. We've done a 7-month with, practical components. But the development and the learning and the experience that people, the experience from being in the industry, understanding that, and then this new skill set has been a fantastic combination. So I think the answer lies in all of those combinations. And that's exactly what diversity is. It's all of the differentness of people, whether it's age or skill or experience or gender, that really brings us to the best and the most innovative results.
Mm-hmm. And for everyone out there watching us, young, old, women, men of other description, you see how passionate we are about our industry, how much we love it, how much fun we're having. And you have to join us if you want to join an industry that is the core of our society and will only do more exciting things. Join us. You don't have to be an engineer in technology. We need all types of people with all types of backgrounds and all types of ideas, and you can join us and to build the society of the future and come and have fun with us. As you see, we like each other's company a lot. We like what we do. We're very passionate about the industry. So I guess it brings us to my last question. I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to put you on the spot. Not that I never do that, but so I'm going to ask you a call to action. Exactly that for people watching us. In one word or a few words, okay, what should they do to help transform or bring the industry to the next level? What should we all do to make change happen? What would be the one thing that you would want people to remember after this very inspiring panel? What is the thing that each of us should do to make change happen and create the future of our industry and of our society? Who wants to start? Mardia? Oh, yeah.
I think for me, if I just have to generally, I mean, I've got two Generation Zs. Two of my sons are currently Generation Z. One is just entering the work. And what I'm so impressed about is this absolutely deep sense of purpose and conviction. And that is, and for me, it's just living their purpose, and bringing that, the purpose-drivenness, the ethic, for example, there's a series of companies that he will not work for. And we had long debates about it. And it was because of the kind of work and the greed. And that is just not where he would go. And that, for me, this is how we will change the world, is if all of these young people entering the workplace stays true to their ideals, and to this inclusion and respect for the world and the people and the planet that we live on.
Very good, Mardia. Eric, do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a powerful last question you posed to us. As I look at my 30-year-old daughter, my 24-year-old daughter, and my 18-year-old son, and clearly look for them to be gainfully employed and not having to come to me for their financial security. And once again, this industry just brings so much. And I encourage them, I tell them often, be the change you want to see. And at the end of the day, if we take what I've been talking about, this L3, it's L cubed, it's really listening, it's taking that and learning, and then L, lead with action. What are we going to do differently because of what you heard today to make certain that change happens and that you are a change agent in leading that for the company or whatever you do in society? And so I think it's like, and I liked the winning together I heard Keri put forward. We've been using a term called stronger together within Verizon, because it's just a strong belief that none of us will get there by ourselves, but together we'll definitely shape and change the world for the better and more powerful going forward. So once again, listen, learn, lead with action, be the change that you want to see.
Very good, Eric. Patrick, do you want to go next?
Yes, I mean, you know me, I guess Marc knows me also. For me, we are in a people business, and that's the most important. And technology is there to enable what we want to do as people, what we want to achieve as humans, and how we want to interact with others, with technology, with content, with information. So I guess to really piggyback on the message from Eric, is really, you can be the driving force. Each of us, each of you can be the driving force to implement the change that you think it's happened. And then the technology part of industry will be there to make sure that it can be delivered in a very professional manner and efficient manner. So it's really a people business. And I guess the relationship we all have together, I hope, shine from this discussion that it's really bunch of people, not an industry, impersonal, a bunch of people together, partnering, interacting to try to change the world.
Very good, Patrick. Keri?
I would say think beyond your boundaries. This business is about creating what I call extraordinary connections. We've moved from the realm of fixed and telco and dial, and that's no longer where this industry is, and it's not where you're going to come and work. So think about those extraordinary connections that you can make, that we make as an industry, that we enable you to live your purpose, to drive better things across communities, across the world, across all of the climate issues that are happening. You can be that driver of change if you think about the extraordinary connection that you can have by being a part of this industry.
Very good. And we end where we started. Marc, you can close us off.
Well, it's very difficult to close off when everyone said everything correct. I agree with everything that was said, but I'll just offer that then just a couple of ideas and cautionary notes. Number one, change and transformation yields, as I said earlier, winners and losers. And so as we encourage the younger generation, the intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs that we're supposed to be talking to through this panel, they should recognize that the change that they lead, and I fully embrace Eric's message, that it may also have losers. And so therefore it's important, particularly within the framework of a United Nations sponsored environment here, that those who lead this change are also empathetic to those who might suffer from it, because there are winners and losers always. And so therefore, please move forward with change, be leaders in your environment, but do so with empathy. And in order to do that, it might make sense an hour a week to study history.
Very good. And I guess you kind of stole some of my closure, because my closure is a little bit what you said as well. Stop talking and start acting. Each of us did one little thing a day, would encourage, take time to speak to young people, give them some space, talk to women, force women to go on stage and do some discussions like that, help them push their boundaries, include the older generation. If we did something every day, all of us, we would change the world. It wouldn't take very long. So I think it's a little bit what we're doing today. We're doing one little panel. Hopefully we'll inspire 1, 2, 3 people out there to join, to make a difference themselves. I think we can do great things. So thank you so much. It was an incredible panel, as I thought it would be. You're amazing, inspiring leaders. Continue the great work you're doing. I can't wait to see you soon in person. And if I can close, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope we inspired you. And if I can close with one last idea, dream big and take action. Everyone, thank you very much.